Hello everyone, it's Panthea Arvin and welcome back to a new speed paint video for Patreon. This month's artwork was done for kind supporter Lizua, and this is their snow leopard character. And for this gorgeous character, Lizua asked me to draw her with her spots glowing and with sort of an aura or energy around her, which was a super fun idea. If you follow me for a while, you know I have a soft spot for like stuff glowing from the inside out. I've done several paintings with that theme, and it was just a pleasure to work on this one as well. And so I laid down an initial sketch where I simply just explored a pose for this character, and I wanted something that was dynamic and full of movement and life. This character reminded me of a wave of water, and so I made sure that the pose was very flowing and full of movements and twists. And so for the actual anatomy references, as you can see, I have several photos opened up on my screen because snow leopards tend to be quite chunky and full of very fluffy fur, and so it can be pretty tricky to figure out the exact anatomy of the animal. And the face especially has a very unique shape to it. They have this very heavy brow, almost like a frown, which is not seen in many other cats. And so I made sure to represent that. And also for the colors, they tend to be a mix of cool and warm gray. And so I tried out several different combinations of these two colors. I went for sort of, you can see here, almost like a beige, light brown color for like as a base. But then I went back to it and added slightly colder tones toward the top of the body. I think I almost went purple for a moment there. And then for the bottom of the body, I went for a yellowish, light gray, buff kind of color, which is usually what you see on snow leopards. And so after establishing sort of the base colors of this animal, I went back and started out on the spots. Now the spots are going to be the focus of this painting, because the spots are later going to be glowing with blue light. And so the references were also helpful to get the spots correctly, because snow leopards tend to have, the pattern tends to look almost like that of a jaguar, in that some of the spots have tinier spots inside them, but it's also much more sparse. Because of the long fur, it tends to be less crowded on the coat. And also you can see here I have the sketch model for what's going to be the beams of lights erupting from the leopard. And so here I'm starting out with the basic coloring of the insides of the spots. They're going to have this very nice ice blue color. And the eyes and the paw pads are also going to glow, and so I color those in as well. This is done on a layer that's above everything else, because I don't want it to be affected by like shading and multiply layers and later on. And also you can see here that the beams of light around her neck are based on the ones from Okami. That's actually an old concept that was not implemented into the game, where Amaterasu had this weapon that sort of twirled around her neck and created like beams of light. Unfortunately, that was scratched and never included, but it's such a cool concept, and it was really fun to sort of experiment it on the snow leopard. So once the basic pattern of the glowing spots is laid out, it's time to turn off the lights. I darken the background in order to have the spots be the brightest thing on the screen. And immediately the first thing I do is I add a multiply layer, which is blue in color, in order to sort of blend the leopard's body into the background. The focus of this piece is going to be the spots for sure. It's almost like a starry sky. So the fact that the leopard is a little bit blended in is okay in this case. But still, this leopard has almost no volume, so I create a new layer on top of it, which is set to soft light, and I create a little bit of a volume by retracing a little bit of the shapes of the muscles and adding just a little bit of referred light onto the shapes of the leopard so that it doesn't feel completely flat. And this layer is also blue so that it blends in with the general color palette of the painting. Next up, we're going to make the shadows even darker. So I add a second multiply layer, and this time I only paint in the occlusion areas. So the areas that almost come in contact with each other, that have a little extra shade to them. So I don't shade the entire body, but just the little nooks and crannies where the light just does not reach. And these are going to be our darkest areas, the occlusion shadows. And just to bring out that shape just a little bit more, I add a little bit of a value change in the background. I make it just a little bit brighter and just a little bit warmer, so that the leopard still reads as a shape that can be recognized. Next up, with the bases laid down, it is time to move into the details. And so I create a new layer and really start going ham on that fur. Snow leopards are extremely fluffy, so I take my fluffiest looking brush and I really start adding texture to that fur. I make sure to respect the color palette, so I always select colors that come from inside the painting and just brighten them up just a little bit to give them a little bit of variety. And then I make sure that the edges between the spots and the fur have this little jagged shape to imply that there's fur in between them. And I do that for every single spot. This is a very time-consuming process, but it's also tons of fun to see that code actually come to life. Moreover, I also create a bit of a rim light around the edges where the light goes behind the leopard. So you can see on the tail, wherever the streaks of light coming out of the spots sort of go behind the tail, around those areas I add rim light to the fur so that it almost glows up from behind. That's a very common occurrence with fur, and it's just so pleasing to see. And not only that, but it also serves to strengthen the shape of the leopard even more, because it almost creates almost like a rim all around the leopard. As a final touch, I also add the whiskers and all the tiny little specks of light coming from the leopard's spots. I also add a bit of a glow to the leopard's eyes and in general to the spots and the light effect, just to make them that little bit stronger. Up next is I start to work on the actual light streaks, and so I try to make them not as defined, just a little more wispy and with less defined edges. And so I add glow, and then I take my blender tool and sort of break up those shapes. And that's pretty much it. Here is the complete picture, and I really hope you liked this painting. This was tons of fun to draw. Thank you so much once again, Lizua, for your incredible support. I absolutely appreciate it, and thank you everyone as well for your support on Patreon. Honestly, it's been a very rough start of the year for me, and you guys have just been coming through and through. I'm speechless every time. I cannot believe that this is going on, and I absolutely thank you guys so much. And as always, if you're interested in one of these bigger rewards, you can get one of these starting from the Shibarot Syndicate tier, that's the $40 tier, or above. And each tier has its own painting reward that you can customize with your own character, and I will be super happy to work with you. Thank you guys once again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!